Hello, in this video I am going to talk about another architecture which is called clean architecture. This is one of the architectures which is used in your solution to logically structure your code base in layers. What is clean architecture? In clean architecture, the code base is logically separated in layers. The dependencies in your code base move inward. The outer layer is dependent on the inner layer directly below it, but the inner layer does not depend on any of the outer layers. And the innermost layer does not depend on anything and hence totally independent. I will show a brief implementation in code how you can satisfy clean architecture in your code base later after this presentation. Now I am going to show you the implementation of clean architecture. Here you can see I have a models folder which is the innermost layer, and this innermost layer will contain few classes. This innermost layer will contain few entity classes which will be mapped to the database table or storage. So this is the independent layer. This layer will not depend on any other outer layers. So after that, I have the use cases layer, which is the services layer. This is the business logic layer, which will basically will contain all the business logics and will take input from its immediate outer layer. In this case, controller, gateways, representers. So I have a controller layer. Here, this is the controller layer, and it will contain some methods that will use the, for example, the code service and the business logic layer, and it will call the methods of the business logic layers. So controller will communicate with the use cases layer. That means the service layer. And this business logic layer will use an abstraction layer, in this case the repository, which is containing few interfaces, and through this abstraction layer the use case will communicate to the DB, the main storage. So use cases layer will know nothing about DB. It will use the abstraction layer, and abstraction layer will communicate with the DB. So the flow is the controller will use the use case layer, and use case layer will use the abstraction layer to communicate with the DB, to the outermost layer. Here it is showing the DB in the outermost layer. So this is the basically the flow, and the controller's layer, this layer can contain the gateways or presenters which will be consumed by the outermost layer, which can be web, UI, external interfaces. So from the browser, the user will call the controller API, and the controller API will use the business logic layer, and business logic layer will use abstraction layer, the through interface, and this interface is extending the JPA repository, which will contain some methods like find by name, upload course image, and find created by, and I have used the query annotation in this case. And basically this interface will extend the JPA repository, and the JPA repository will use some methods in its designated format to communicate with the database. In other way, we can create a course repository class which will implement this interface, and that interface will be used by the business logic user cases layer, as I am doing right now, and this interface will be implemented by the course repository class to communicate with the database. So in short, the use case of business logic layer will not directly communicate with the database, rather it will use the interface abstraction layer to communicate with the database, so that the communication with the database relies on this abstraction layer. So this is the implementation of the clean architecture. I hope I have derived some important points in this video, so you can use the clean architecture in your software development. Thank you.